This video is meant for the people who know what deep work is, but no matter how hard they try, no matter how many times they sit down in front of their computer, they either procrastinate or just not do the work. See, it's such a wonderful idea, setting time to block what is important to you, but no matter how, unless you are a disciplined person, chances are that you're gonna acknowledge the idea. You're gonna be like, this is a great idea. I need to implement it. And then for the first 2 weeks, you do it and then you don't. All right. So how do we fix this? So let's just jump straight into it. So the number one tactic that I really like that eventually works for me, especially when you are facing that dreaded white blank piece of paper, or for me a Google Docs, is you tell yourself that you set everything up, there's no distractions, maybe like a house plant like this, but there's no distractions at all in your office or wherever you're working, and you put your Google Doc right in front of you, a blank sheet, and you tell yourself you can either do nothing or you can write. And either way, you don't punish yourself, you don't do anything, you either do nothing or you wait. And chances are that if you have faced the boredom, your mind really hates boredom. Like it absolutely like detests it. It's like, oh my god, please don't do this to me, Anthony. It really hates boredom. And chances are, if you're sitting down there for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, there was a time where I was just sitting down staring at it for a whole freaking hour. Yeah. And 1 hour just doing nothing, just staring at a piece of paper. Because that resistance, that initial hurdle to just start writing, for some reason, on that specific day, I did not want to write. So I was just staring at it, and my boredom finally caved in. I was like, you know what? Let's just start writing. What's the worst that could happen? And so I started writing, and then, as every writer has experienced, after you get into the groove, everything is great. So that's my number one strategy on how to get into deep work as a writer. Which leads to my second tip, which is you have to optimize your environment. If you have your phone right here and you have, I don't know, another phone right here, you just have two phones because you're cool, and you're just buzzing with notifications, you are just playing a game against yourself. It's already hard enough to just get into deep work and start, focusing. But then when you have all these distractions, maybe you have like your favorite poster there, or maybe you just like have like notifications outside of your room. All this noise, all this distraction is playing against you. And so the good thing to do, the good thing that you can control is the environment around you in most cases. And you just want to create, if it's too noisy, then you just use headphones to just cancel it out and put some, nice relaxing music or whatever music that gets you into focus. Then after that, you keep all your phones out, you leave it somewhere where you just can't reach it when you start writing, okay? That's how you optimize your environment. You just make it as boring as possible so that the only fun thing you could do is start writing, okay? Tip number 3, what I like to do is I like to use Google Calendar. It's free, it's easy to use, and it just works with basically everything. And so what I like to do is I like to schedule time for deep work. So I like to put deep work around 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. and I just block that time in my calendar. Now, what you want to do is you want to try to commit. And just when it strikes at 8 a.m. for me, you want to try to get into deep work. And now in the very beginning, it's going to be freaking hard to do 4 hours of straight work, okay? So, there's techniques like the Pomodoro, but what I found works best for me is I just put a timer for 4 hours, okay? And I'm just sitting in that room for 4 hours. I can write whenever I want to. I can not write whenever I want to. The only rules is I can't take a nap and I can't leave the room unless I need to use the bathroom. Those are the only two rules. And for 4 hours, I can either write or just stay in that boring room. And chances are, over time, in the beginning, I don't want to write, of course. So then, I just be procrastinating, I just do whatever. And at one point, you're just so bored that you just end up writing. And the more times you do it, you're just sitting in this environment, the more your body starts to acknowledge, like, okay, this is a room for work. And it becomes easier to enter this flow state where, after at one point your body is going to be like, okay, This is a room to work. Let's just get it over with. I kind of don't want to do it, but let's just work. Let's just get straight into it. And that's exactly what happens over time, okay? You just block out time and you try to fill up as much of that time as possible writing. Maybe Pomodoro works for you. Maybe my method works for you. You got to experiment and see what exactly works for you. The fourth tip that I have ended up using during this time of just 4 hours of just silence, okay? Just silence in this godforsaken office is what I like to do is you gotta tell yourself that you'll just end up working for 10 minutes only, okay? You gotta do whatever, you gotta play mind games with your mind, okay? You're playing against yourself. And what you wanna do is you just wanna somehow brainwash yourself into saying, okay, I'm just gonna work 10 minutes, you know? There's that initial resistance, you know? Every writer faces this every single day. And this initial resistance, you gotta brainwash yourself to just start working, okay? Just even for a couple minutes. Because what ends up happening is after you work that a couple minutes, you know, it's just so much easier to write it. For some reason, it's like your brain is like, oh wow, it's not as hard as I thought. And then you could just keep on working for like, you know, an hour or two before you get a little sleepy, and then you could decide to take a break. Or you could just tell yourself to brainwash and just start working again. Either way works. But you gotta somehow brainwash yourself into getting past that initial hurdle. And what ends up happening is, just like I said, you're gonna end up start working, you know, more than 10 minutes. But let's say that, you know, you tried the 10 minutes thing and then you just couldn't work, okay? That's actually good enough, okay? So that means the problem lies that you don't believe in yourself that you are a writer who writes every day, okay? The first thing we need to establish is your identity, which leads to our tip number 5, which is create an identity that you are a writer who writes every day, okay? That means, you know, write every day for 10 minutes. It's 10 minutes seems like it's so tiny compared to 4 hours. But the first thing before you can write 4 hours a day is you gotta write, you know, at least 10 minutes a day, right? And if 10 minutes is too much, then drop it down to 2 minutes. Whatever you do, you don't want to break the streak of not writing every day, okay? Before you can write 10 minutes a day, you gotta believe that you are a writer that can write every day. And to do that, in order to believe in that, you either gotta brainwash yourself, but another helpful way is to build evidence for yourself. So if you see that you've been writing every single day, even if it's 2 minutes, you could be like, okay, I am a writer who writes every day for 2 minutes. You know, after a week or two, what happens to most people is they bump it up to, you know, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. And this may seem like, you know, just 10 minutes a day doesn't seem like much compared to, you know, 4 hours a day. But what ends up happening is it snowballs, you know. Once you can write every day, when you don't feel like it, when you do feel like it, anytime you feel like it, okay? At one point, you know, it's going to be a lot easier to do 30 minutes a day, 1 hour a day, 2 hours a day, and it just becomes easier over time. You just got to break. You just cannot break. Let me emphasize that again. You cannot break the streak when you are establishing the new habit, because even doing deep work is another type of habit. It's a different type of habit. But before we could do the deep work habit, you gotta do the writing habit first. And then you can combine the two where you can just make super progress, alright? And those are my 5 tips on how you can get into deep work as a writer. If you enjoyed this video, you know, I'd appreciate a subscribe or just comment below. And peace out.